can cause severe aggressive thoughts, which if unmanaged can turn into full-blown anger and in some cases even rage.
Because Rad is one of those ones that impacts my anger badly, but it is 100% rage in a bottle.
Rad150, also known as TLB150, is seen by some as a viable substitute for testosterone replacement therapy. And I chose to cover the brand Sports Technology Labs for a very specific reason. You see, over the last 2 weeks, I have spent countless hours vetting close to 22 different SARM companies. And to be honest, it is a shit show out here. Everything is faked, but more on that in a minute. My name is Travis Dillard. I used to help a lot of people gain a lot of muscle. I've been involved in the fitness industry for a number of years, been lifting for, close to 15 of them. And the reason that you should listen to me today is because I'm constantly looking for information to contradict my own personal viewpoints so that we can remove the biases, so that we can provide you the most concise yet comprehensive anabolic supplement breakdowns and reviews ever seen on the internet or anywhere. My promise to you today is that you're going to walk away from this video with a complete and deep understanding of, in general, what a SARM is, the history of Rad150, its benefits, the cycle length, when to use it, how to use it, the side effects, the best PCT protocol, and because SARMs are faked 95% of the time, and I've spent more time researching this than any one healthy individual probably should, at the end, I'm going to walk you through 4 steps to avoid buying bunk SARMs. And my dudes, this might just be the most valuable information we put out yet. So what is Rad150? Rad150, also known as TLB150, formerly known as Rad140 or Testolone, was first mentioned and glamorized in a 2010 research piece, which essentially stated they were having massive success, early success, in treating muscle wasting properties and activity within both monkeys and rats. And the first human study was completed by a company called Radius Health back in 2017, and they were treating breast cancer patients. And the results of the study, well, they were supposedly good, but we didn't know at the time because they weren't released until 3 years later in 2020, but this is where things get rocky. Ellipsis Pharma comes in and says, I want Rad140. They buy it from Radius Health, immediately releasing it onto the open market, touting from the rooftops that we have the answer to muscle wasting. The problem was that they still weren't approved by the FDA. Wait, wasn't the FDA the one that approved Oxycontin? And they still don't have approval, which just means that every bottle is going to say the same thing. It may not say not for human consumption, but it definitely will say for research purposes only. And shortly thereafter, Ellipsis Pharma would come in and say, we want to enhance Rad140. So they added a benzoate ester to it, which did a lot. The first being it increased the alkalinity in the body, which just means it's more in a homeostatic state. It's more organic. So your body's going to be a lot more anabolic. And we're also going to see an improvement in water solubility, which just means you're going to be able to absorb a lot of it a lot more quickly. And the last is concentration levels. They're going to be pretty even throughout the body the longer the ester because it has more time to disperse. And the half-life, well, the half-life of Rad140 is about 60 hours, 80 when they made the conversion to what they now call Rad150. It's not going to be wet or dry because it's not directly involved with testosterone or estrogen. And I have exact numbers that I am going to share with you here in a minute. But for now, well, spoiler alert, Rad150, suppression-wise, it kind of surprised me. So I'm going to level with you for a second. Nobody out there is talking about any of this. Well, they're talking about it, but not at the level, not at the comprehensiveness that we are. And they're certainly not going to make it as simple and easy to understand. You want the truth? I've got it. And more. We need a prerequisite understanding of SARMs first. Past all the marketing, past all the locker room chats and the internet, the Reddits, the interwebs, even if you already think you know what a SARM is. What actually is a SARM? SARMs, or selective androgen receptor modulators. Not to be confused with SERMs, selective estrogen receptor modulators like a Nolvadex or clomiphene. SARMs work by selectively binding to androgen receptors found in both bone and muscle tissue. And this is where things get interesting because it doesn't directly increase testosterone, much like the Icicle Killer's weapon just kind of disappears after the deed is done. Wait, that's not a good example. SARMs covertly mimic the effects of testosterone without actually increasing testosterone directly. Now, I know that sounds very strange, but all we're saying here is that testosterone within the body endogenously is not going up. And we're not getting it from an external source or exogenously. And because it's selective in the androgen it binds to, the body sees it as organic. So it's going to circumvent any of the foreign substance radars. So we're not going to have to worry about hives like we do with the oils from this stuff. And once they activate the receptors, SARMs increase gene expression by boosting just the genes involved in both bone and muscle tissue, thus creating more protein synthesis, thus creating more gains or muscle growth and bone density. TLDR, well, it's safer than the real stuff. And because natural testosterone and estrogen aren't actively engaged by the SARMs, we're not going to have to worry about estrogen-related side effects or suppression or any androgenic side effects. But this is all going to be dependent upon your dosing.
The higher and higher the dosage gets, the less selective it becomes. So almost like certain, beta blockers, for example, as you get higher and higher, they become less receptor selective and you get more like broad spectrum,
So what he's ultimately saying here is that at high doses of SARMs, you can maximize the SARM effect, but then you're going to have to deal with the side effects of full-blown steroids. And Rad150, to be perfectly honest with you, it veers from this limited side effect category pretty dang quickly. But let's go ahead and jump into the benefits first. Alrighty, let's dive on in. What are the benefits of Rad150? So you may have heard of this doctor, Dr. Thomas O'Connor, the anabolic doc. He's been in this space for like 20 years or so. And back in 2015, he actually put me on TRT and got me interested in hormones to begin with. But recently, in January of 2024, he put an article together, and it was basically the findings of his patients who took Rad150. Specifically, he compared Rad140 to Rad150 and immediately saw that Rad150 led to 15% less cholesterol and liver enzyme issues, and that Rad150 over Rad140 boosted strength by 20%. Now, I realize that the comparison here doesn't tell us a whole lot other than the additional ester with Rad150 allows for a little less toxicity and a little more muscle gain. And much like most androgens out there, Rad150 was determined to have neuroprotective qualities in rats. And though it's not directly related, we can extrapolate that to humans, especially when we're talking about the treatment of dementia-related illnesses. And depending where you are on your journey, on average, you can expect about 5 to 6 pounds of muscle gain here. And you're going to start to notice the effects about weeks 2 through 4, but they're really going to kick in weeks 6, 7, and 8. All in all, Rad150 has a ton of benefits, from muscle gain to muscle density to bone density to sex drive to increased endurance to increased recovery, all the way down to improved brain fog. The brain fog is just less. Mentally, you're just going to feel like you're more on because your neurons are going to be firing faster. Real quick, if you enjoy pharmacology and you want to see more videos just like this, you mind tapping that like button for me? We're trying to get this information out there to people who actually need it, just like yourself, and it would really support me as well. And when's the best time to use Rad150? Plain and simple, it's considered very versatile, so it can be used for bulking, cutting, or even recomping. And as for the cycle length and dosing, it's going to be 8 weeks. The clinical dose is going to be 10 milligrams a day. And my dudes, I would not exceed this because of the comments we heard earlier from Derek, as well as the side effects we're about to go over. But if you were to embark down the path of Sports Technology Labs Rad150, which has 30 milliliters, 10 milligrams per milliliter, you'll need 2 bottles for an 8-week cycle. And if the side effects get too strong, my dudes, please stop taking it. So then what are the side effects we need to watch out for? All over the internet, there's been a ton of complaints about insomnia with Rad150, and a lot of people believe it's because of the esterification or the additional ester that was added. But some researchers believe it's just the way SARMs work. It's just how they attach to receptors. I think that it could just be a change in hormones. Others have experienced elevated blood pressure, which, to be honest, guys, it's really a side effect that's very rarely talked about because other people like to focus on the milder SARMs like S4 or ostarine. But just within a couple weeks, Rad150 can cause your points to go up 15, 20, maybe even 25. So if you have hypertension or know someone that does, steer clear, my dudes. An elevated blood pressure will then result in some additional side effects like potentially heart palpitations and even an increased heart rate. Rad150 can cause severe aggressive thoughts, which, if unmanaged, can turn into full-blown anger and, in some cases, even rage.
Because Rad is one of those ones that impacts my anger badly, but it is 100% rage in a bottle.
But that's slightly dramatic, considering you and I are going to be taking the clinical dose of 10 milligrams a day, right? And though Rad150 doesn't directly affect estrogen or testosterone and DHT, which, let's talk about that for a second. How does that make sense? It doesn't directly affect DHT, yet there's still hair loss issues.
It's not hair safe at all. You can see in that vlog that my hair looks very malnourished, like it's suffering.
And this is because its indirect effect on estrogen is super high, meaning that it's going to have a maximum aromatization. And when estrogen gets that high and testosterone aromatizes into estrogen and it gets to these high levels, we're then going to face some other issues with other hormones. DHT could be one of them. Estrogen, though, that's what we're talking about here. We're going to need an AI. And my dudes, arimistane is not going to work here. This is not a prohormone. This is a Sarm. We've also seen some cases of high cholesterol, which salt bile from Tutka, which Dr. O'Connor clearly states, this can help both AST and ALT, at least preventing them from getting out of control. As for your wife, if your girlfriend or wife asks you about Rad150, tell them that it leads to androgenic side effects. So unless they want a hardened jawline and an enlarged clitoris, I suggest she steers clear. But wait, do we really need a PCT? I thought you said SARMs weren't suppressive. Through an SHBG blood test run by Dr. O'Connor, he found something that was very interesting. When he compared Rad150 to Rad140, he saw that Rad150 was 20% more suppressive when compared to the already suppressive Rad140. Now, if you're new here, well, suppression might be a confusing word for you. You're not sure what that is. Maybe you've heard it as shutdown. Well, it's actually the brain to ball connection, which all that is on a blood test, they're markers, LH and FSH. Follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. And if you get below the reference ranges, we're talking about fertility here, so listen up, you might experience motility issues in your sperm, and this might affect your ability to have children later on down the road. So we don't want to run into this problem, so we must take a PCT, but don't worry, we're going to do a 4-week PCT, completely expedited. And you don't need to take notes either, because I'm going to give you a screenshot here at the end. It's going to have all the cycle. It's going to have the ancillaries. It's going to have all the dosages, everything you need. But 48 hours right after you take your last dose of Rad150, so after your 8 weeks, I, not you, this is educational and entertainment purposes only, will start taking a Sarm or Novadex. So that's going to be 40 milligrams every day for the first weeks 1 and week 2. And then we're going to pop it in half, and we're going to take 20 milligrams weeks 3 and week 4. But because this is a 4-week cycle, or sorry, a 4-week PCT, we need to make sure that we really nip it in the bud. So let's go with another Sarm, Clomid. We're going to take 50 milligrams every single day, weeks 1 and week 2. And then I also take half in weeks 3 and week 4, so 25 milligrams. Now, you could, in theory, take a Rimoplex for liver and organ support while on cycle, and for the arimistane or the AI. But it might not be enough for you, especially if you had any gyno during puberty, which I, in fact, did. And if that's the case, I suggest that, or I should say, I got to be careful about that, would take something a little bit stronger. I would take anastrozole. But how am I supposed to get that? I don't even have a doctor. I'm going to give you a hack real quick. And you didn't hear this from me, and the YouTube gods are not going to like this too much. But here's what you do. Go buy 4-andro. Start taking it. Plan a doctor's office visit. Go in. Get a blood test. When the doctor inevitably asks, why is your estrogen so high? You tell him that you are taking legal prohormones. And you'll be good to go. You're welcome. But none of this matters if we're buying garbage products. So let's talk about the 4 steps to avoid buying bunk Sarms. And what step that you decide to stop at. That's going to be dependent 100% on the inputs you need to make your decision through your decision-making filter. Step 1. So first and foremost, Sarms like Rad150, when you go to their website, whatever it is, it's got to have 2 different tests. The first is an efficacy test. So it's going to state anywhere between 0 to 100% how much of the product is actually in there. We like to see about a 99, optimally 100%. The second test is going to be very important as well. It's got to have a contaminant test. It's got to have both tests so that we know if we're ingesting mold. And most people, well, they're good to stop right there. That's enough. They've made their decision. They're moving forward. Dang eager muscle heads. They just move without thinking. But for me, well, that's not quite enough. Step 2. Now, I know this is a little rudimentary, but believe it or not, if you type to comment in the comments section on this video or any other videos, there are an enormous number of people with a lot of anabolic experience that can absolutely help. On top of that, go to forums, go to Reddit, get involved, get in the weeds. Now, I know people laugh at this because they're like, anecdotal. Here's the thing, guys, enough anecdotal cases and you got the confidence you need to potentially make a decision. But for me personally, step 2 is still not enough. We need to keep going. Step 3, actually look at the test and identify that the lab they used for the test. Then go to the said lab's website and request a bunch of ID numbers, and then have them run those ID numbers through their database to confirm the test was completed and you can verify it. And step 4, If we want to know with 100% certainty that this product is exactly what it says it is, we only have one option left. That's to send it off to a testing facility, an HLPC verified testing facility, actually. And that's going to cost you about $100. As for when I typically stop, it's step 3. I get the ID numbers, I verify them, I'm good to go. But I went above and beyond for at least this product specifically, Rad150 by Sports Technology Labs. I made it all the way to level 4. And I did this because I wanted to make sure that you guys had the best brand and the best product that I could find. Because what's the point? Talking all this stuff and then you go buy a bunk SARM. Like, you don't know. It could happen to anybody. As for Rad150, well, you know what, guys? We're not going to do thumbs today. Because, well, we love the product. It's got a lot of good benefits, but the side effects are simply atrocious. If you want to take a screenshot, it's right here of the entire cycle. And if you want to learn how to keep your gains in between cycles, because why are we doing all this if we can't keep our gains? Here's a video that you're going to want to see. Until next week, stay safe and stay swole, my brothers.